to find someone that you really cared about and cared about you.
60 years ago, Dolores Hart was everywhere. Movie posters, magazine covers, even on screen with Elvis Presley. Then she vanished. No scandal tour, no messy headlines. Just a choice that shocked Hollywood. One day, she was a rising star with a bright future and plans on the table. The next, she was behind monastery walls, trading spotlights for silence. What makes someone walk away when the world is finally watching? Was it faith, pressure, heartbreak, or something deeper? The truth is stranger than a rumor, and it's real. Her name was Dolores Hicks, and fame came fast. Join us as we follow her life from the very beginning, uncover her career highs, and see why she disappeared from Hollywood. Dolores Hart starts in Chicago. She was born Dolores Hicks on October 20th, 1938. She was the only child of actor Bert Hicks and his wife Harriet. They were very young when she arrived. Her mother was 16 and her father was 17. The marriage did not last. While her dad chased movie offers and moved the family toward Hollywood, Dolores often ended up back in Chicago with her grandparents. And they were a big reason she became who she became. They sent her to St. Gregory Catholic School for a simple reason. It was closer, and they did not want her crossing tracks or getting hit by a streetcar on the way to public school. But that practical choice did something deeper. At age 10, Dolores converted to Roman Catholicism. Later, she even joked that the kids who took communion got chocolate milk and donuts, and that made the whole thing feel warm and welcoming. At the same time, movies were never far away. Her grandfather worked as a movie theater projectionist, and his excitement rubbed off on her. She would sit with films for hours, sometimes watching them without sound so she would not wake him during his naps, then waking him when the film ended. She also visited her father on sets and loved the world behind the camera, including the film Forever Amber. She even played a child in it in 1947. By age 11, she was living in Beverly Hills with her mother and attending an all-girls Catholic high school. The stage and faith were both pulling on her, and soon she would have to pick which voice to follow first. The phone call that changed everything. After high school, she studied at Marymount College near Los Angeles and started taking small acting roles. She did not move like someone chasing attention. She moved like someone who felt called to perform. She even said she prayed for an acting career and believed it was meant for her. "I knew God was on my side," she later said. Then the moment came. At 19, while she was still at Marymount, she got a telephone call. A man asked her to come to Hollywood for an interview for a film. She said yes, and then she prayed she would get the part. Around this time, she also took on the name Dolores Hart as a stage name in 1956, and her look and calm presence made people in the industry pay attention. Producer Hal Wallace helped shape her professional identity, and that new name became the one the public would remember. Her big break hit in 1957 with Loving You, where she played the wholesome love interest of Elvis Presley. The funny part is, she said she had not even kept up with music, and she barely knew who he was. When they met, she simply told him, "I hope we can be friends." On screen, their connection worked, and one moment turned into pop culture history. She became the first actress to kiss Elvis on screen. People kept asking her what it was like, and she later explained it in a way only she could. "I think the limit for a screen kiss back then was something like 15 seconds. That one has lasted 40 years. Elvis even asked her out during filming. She said no because they worked together, and she suggested they go out after filming ended. He never asked again. But the bigger twist is what happened between takes. They formed a quiet friendship, and they even read the Bible together. And that mix of fame and faith was only getting louder. 6 years, a whirlwind, and a bigger spotlight. After Loving You, everything moved fast. In 1957, Dolores Hart appeared in Wild is the Wind with Anna Magnani and Anthony Quinn, proving she could stand beside serious actors. A year later, she showed vulnerability in Lonely Hearts, playing a young woman pulled into a troubled relationship. That same year, she reunited with Elvis Presley in King Creole, where her quiet goodness stood out, and critics stopped seeing her as just Elvis's girl. The press began comparing her to Grace Kelly, not only for beauty, but for calm presence. At the same time, she broke into Broadway with The Pleasure of His Company, won a Theatre World Award, and earned a Tony nomination. In 1960, Where the Boys Are turned into a cultural moment, and her role as Merritt made her a familiar face to a younger generation. She worked with major names, attracted constant gossip, and was soon labeled the June Allison of the 60s. From the outside, nothing seemed able to slow her rise. Yet beneath the spotlight, her inner life stayed steady. Whether working or not, she woke every day at 6 a.m. to attend Mass. Faith was not a screen image for her, it was routine. She continued choosing roles that showed range, appearing on television in Playhouse 90, and playing women from many backgrounds in a short span. She later starred in The Inspector, which earned a Golden Globe nomination. And on the surface, she had success, attention, and money. She was even set up on dates, including one with Los Angeles businessman Don Robinson. But while rumors grew louder, her real question became quieter. It was no longer about how big she could become, but whether Hollywood was where she still belonged. The last screen moment that quietly closed the door. By 1963, Dolores Hart had already lived what most actors only dream about. But that year is where her Hollywood story takes a sharp turn. In April 1963, she appeared on The Virginian as Kathy Maywood in the episode The Mountain of the Sun. She played a Catholic missionary, and the role itself feels like a mirror of what her real life was becoming. In the story, she risks her life even when people warn her not to. She is trying to honor her vows to God while also holding on to a very human desire to continue her dead husband's work and help a community of poor and sick Indian tribes. That episode aired on April 17, 1963, and it became her last released acting role. Just 1 month earlier, she had finished her last film role in Come Fly With Me, where she appeared with Hugh O'Brian. By then, she had already made up her mind to leave the film industry. She was only 24, and while the outside world still saw her as a young star with everything ahead of her, inside, she was already stepping towards something else. And the part that shocks people most is that she did not drift away slowly. She made a decision, and she moved on it. Come Fly With Me and the friendship that showed her real character. During the filming of Come Fly With Me, she formed a close friendship with Karl Malden, and the details of that friendship say a lot about who she was when the cameras were off. Malden later wrote in his autobiography, When Do I Start?, that Dolores became close to his family, not in a celebrity way, but in a quiet, practical way. When Malden and his wife Mona Malden wanted to go out, Dolores would spend time babysitting their kids. She adored the children, and Malden said she quickly became like a member of the family. That is a very different picture than the usual Hollywood party scene people imagine. It also lines up with what many people said about her, that she was friendly, pleasant, considerate, and not temperamental. Around this same time, her personal life looked like it was moving toward a very normal future. Shortly after the picture, she got engaged, and she even asked Malden's daughters, Mila and Carla, to be her bridesmaids. The girls went through a couple of fittings for their dresses. Everything looked set. The kind of life that makes sense on paper was right there in front of her. A growing career, a wedding coming, and close friends who cared about her like family. But then something happened that no one around her expected, and it did not look like a typical Hollywood change of plans. It looked like a complete turn. The engagement that seemed perfect until it wasn't. The man she was engaged to was Don Robinson, a devout Catholic and a Los Angeles architect. They dated for 5 years, and by all accounts, it was serious. Dolores herself admitted she loved him, and she said it plainly. Of course, Don, I love you. But even with love there, she started feeling unsure in a way she could not ignore. In another recollection, she described how fast things were moving after he asked her to marry him. She remembered that he quickly picked the place he wanted them to live, and she told him, Don, we're going too fast. She also spoke about a moment where Don could sense something was not fully settled in her. In a later conversation she shared, they were driving, and he stopped the car and asked her directly, Something isn't right. Do you love me? She answered that she did, but he asked again because he felt something deeper. Like part of her was not with him in the way a future wife needs to be. And then there was the lunch date where she finally said what she had been holding in. She told Don, I just have to tell you, I cannot say yes to this. She recalled him standing up from the table and yelling, No! And people in the restaurant looking over. Then she told him the hardest part. "Don, I'm telling you the truth. I really love you, but not in the way that you want." That line matters because it shows her choice was not about hating him or being bored with him. It was about a different kind of calling that was growing inside her, and she could not pretend it was not there. Even Don later said something that explains their bond better than any gossip ever could. Every love doesn't have to wind up at the altar, and once she called off the wedding, the next move she made was so surprising that people still talk about it like a movie plot, an affair of the heart, and the day she gave it all away. After those bridesmaid fittings, Dolores walked into the Maldons' home and told them she was calling off the wedding. Then, according to Maldon, a few days later she came over again with what amounted to all her worldly possessions, jewelry, purses, and knickknacks, and told the girls to take what they wanted. She said she was moving away, and she explained it in a way that sounded romantic at first, but was not what anyone expected. She called it an affair of the heart. Those were her exact words as Maldon quoted them. It was not just that she was leaving her fiancé, she was also leaving her acting career. Around the same time, she was doing a New York promotional stop for Come Fly With Me. And instead of continuing the normal Hollywood routine, she took a one-way car ride to the Benedictine Abbey she had been visiting. There were reports that she arrived in a limousine, and she even joked later, "I arrived at Regina Laudis in style." But another detail stresses that it was not the glamorous limo ride some people imagine. Either way, the core fact stays the same. She went one way, not two. She was not taking a break. She was not thinking about it. She was going to Abbey of Regina Laudis in Bethlehem, Connecticut, and she was choosing to enter a cloistered life. She was 24 years old. She had fame, she had a ring, and she walked away from both. The world tried to explain it in simple ways, but she kept pushing back against stereotypes, and her own words show she had been moving toward this for longer than most people realized. The calling didn't come overnight, even though many people later acted like her decision came out of nowhere. The signs had been there for years. Long before she entered Regina Laudis, Dolores Hart had been visiting the Abbey at least twice a year. The story reaches back to 1959, when she was performing on Broadway in The Pleasure of His Company. A friend invited her to meet some nuns, and she resisted immediately. She remembered blurting out, "Nuns! No, I don't want to meet nuns." But her friend pressed her, asking, "Did I ever steer you wrong?" Dolores admitted she hadn't, so she went. What surprised her was how quickly it affected her. After only a few hours at the Abbey, she felt something she couldn't ignore. She later said it felt like being in a special place. Curious and unsure, she asked the Reverend Mother if she had a vocation. The answer was unexpected. She was told, No, go back and do your movie thing. You're too young." Dolores said she was so relieved she practically fled. She returned to work, making films like Where the Boys Are and Francis of Assisi, which took her to Rome. But the visits never stopped. The demands of the stage began to wear her down, and a friend suggested she rest at Regina Laudis for a few days. At first, she resisted again. Then she went and loved it. It was peaceful, she said. "I found inner certitude." Each visit made it harder to leave. She also wrestled with guilt about being a Catholic actress, but the Mother Superior offered calm guidance. Chastity doesn't mean you don't appreciate what God created. Chastity says, use it well. That reassurance helped her think clearly. And when the moment finally came, she didn't say she was running away from something. She said she was running toward something. Rome, the Pope, and the words that stayed with her. While making Francis of Assisi in Rome, she met Pope John XXIII, and she said he was instrumental in her vocation. The story of their meeting is simple, but it hit her like a bell. She introduced herself the way an actress would. "I am Dolores Hart, the actress playing Clara." But the Pope corrected her. He said, "No, you are Clara." She thought he misunderstood, so she repeated herself, explaining she was an actress portraying Clara. The Pope looked her square in the eye and said again, "No, you are Clara." She even remembered the Italian, "Tu sei Chiara." That statement stayed with her and rang in her ears many times. It was like someone naming something in her that she had not fully said out loud. Later, she also pointed to another part of her work life that stirred these thoughts. She said the film Lisa, where a Jewish World War II refugee has a spiritual awakening, was the one that made her really think about the possibility of being a nun, and she admitted she had never really spoken about that connection until much later. She described asking herself blunt questions. What am I doing in Hollywood? Where is this going to take me? And the answer did not feel like something she chose for fun. She said it felt like God's will, not hers. That sounds dramatic, but she explained it like a real person explaining a real turning point. She said she did not plan it, but the vocation showed her purpose, and then the realization became clear. And once she accepted that, she stepped into the monastery and started learning a new life from the ground up, inside the cloister, the schedule, the rule, and the hard first years. When she joined the Bethlehem Abbey in 1963, she disciplined herself under the rule of Saint Benedict. She initially took the religious name Sister Judith, but later changed it to Sister Dolores for her final vows to please her mother. She took her final vows in 1970. She sheared off her beautiful golden hair as part of that transition. The daily life she entered was not soft or symbolic. It was structured, demanding, and physical. One description calls it an island of enclosure, with prayers at several hours of the day, including 2 a.m., and chores on the farm and woodlands that stretched across hundreds of acres. Another detailed routine describes matins at 2 o'clock in the morning, then more prayer sessions through the day, with Holy Mass at 8 o'clock, followed by breakfast, and the day ending with Compline around 7:45 p.m. Hart also chants in Latin 8 times a day. She once said the transition was not easy and how she had to get used to singing many times a day, working in the Abbey's garden, and sharing a bathroom with 10 people. The first 7 years she wanted to quit and turn around, but she stayed, and she described that moment when the seed finally sprouted, and she knew God was there and it was right. And what makes this even more interesting is that she did not act like her old life was fake, and this life was real. She kept saying something that surprises people. She never felt she was walking away from Hollywood. She felt she was walking into something more significant, and in her mind, she took Hollywood with her. That idea becomes clearer when you hear what people close to her noticed about her long before she entered the Abbey. The woman who shines from within. People who worked with her often said she felt different from the usual Hollywood rising star. Cyril Ritchard once put it best, Dolores Hart has a quality that is rare. She shines from within. She has a tremendous dedication. Tony Franciosa, her co-star in Wild is the Wind, remembered her as a very quiet and very sweet girl. He said that while her choice surprised people, it also made sense in hindsight. He described her as simple and not caught up in glamour, and he noted she rarely wore makeup off-set. Dolores herself admitted she hated the pressure of always looking perfect. During The Inspector, she said, "I was miserable watching my hair every second and checking my makeup constantly." For the role of Lisa, she cut about 2 feet off her long blonde hair and felt relieved. "I'm glad to have it off. What nonsense I once went through to be beautiful." Frank Gorshin also remembered how strikingly beautiful she was, and when he heard she became a nun, he said it made sense because she seemed almost angelic. Dolores also made it clear she was not trying to play a Hollywood game. When asked what her angle was, she said, "I don't have one. I don't live in a make-believe world with make-believe people." Those comments explain why her later silence was not a stunt. It was consistent with who she had always been, the reporter who drove into the countryside and never reached her. Years after she entered the Abbey, people still tried to get access to her, but the monastery stayed firm. One reporter in the 1980s described driving through Connecticut countryside to the Abbey after being told to follow Route 6 and look for a marked turnoff. He admitted he felt anxious, both because he was a non-Catholic and because he was entering a private world run by a small community of women. He wrote to Mother Dolores asking for an interview, but she said no. She explained that her place was a contemplative witness, which is one of silence in prayer, and that this would speak to a world that already communicates loudly on one level. She signed her letter with every blessing, Mother Dolores Hart, OSB. When he wrote back trying to understand, she confirmed he understood, but said she could no longer keep writing. "It is not within me to do so," she told him, adding, "You will be very much in our prayers." After more letters to the guest mistress, Mother Eileen, the abbey finally allowed him to visit for a weekend, but only if he joined their routine. He attended Mass and tried to glimpse Mother Dolores through a wooden grate, and he even requested a private meeting. In the end, he was told no meeting could be arranged. The abbey did not want publicity, and many people had tried to reach her over the years without success. She was protected from being pulled back into her old public life. That was the kind of silence she chose, not as an escape, but as a line she refused to cross. Arts, leadership, and returning to the world on her own terms. Inside the abbey, Dolores Hart did not leave her talents behind. She reshaped them. Her mission moved away from film sets and into community life, where she used the arts to build a bridge between the abbey and the outside world. With support from Paul Newman and Patricia Neal, she helped develop an open-air theater and arts program for the Bethlehem community. This effort led to the creation of the Gary the Olivia Theater on Abbey land, built in 1982. Each summer, the nuns and local residents worked together to stage a musical, turning the abbey into a place where faith and creativity meet. Dolores later said it was through this theater that she finally understood how her acting background could help young people explore purpose, discipline, and belief through art. Alongside this work, she took on major leadership roles within the monastery. She served as Dean of Education for many years, guiding women who were drawn to monastic life and helping them understand its demands through self-knowledge and spiritual growth. In 2001, she was named Prioress of the Abbey of Regina Laudis, a role she held until 2015. Even as a cloistered nun, she stayed connected to the film world in a quiet but remarkable way. She is a voting member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, making her the only nun to hold that position. For Dolores, this confirmed something she often said. She never felt she walked away from Hollywood. She felt she walked into something more meaningful and carried her past with her. After decades of silence, she stepped back into public view on her own terms. In 2006, after 43 years in the Abbey, she returned to raise awareness for idiopathic peripheral neuropathy, a painful neurological disorder she lives with. She testified at a congressional hearing, showing she had never hidden from the world. She simply chose when and why to re-enter it. In 2016, she marked 50 years of vowed life at Regina Laudis, a moment that prompted renewed reflection on her journey. By then, her story had returned not as gossip, but as purpose, shaped entirely by her own choices, books, documentaries, and the Oscar night that surprised everyone. Years after leaving Hollywood, Dolores Hart's story returned to the public in an unexpected way. A documentary about her life, God is the Bigger Elvis, was nominated for the 2012 Academy Award for Best Documentary Short Subject and aired on HBO that same year. Hart attended the Academy Awards for the film, marking her first red carpet Oscar appearance since 1959, not as a movie star, but as a Benedictine nun. Around this period, she also released her autobiography, The Ear of the Heart, co-authored with Richard Denute and published in 2013. In the book, she spoke plainly about her decision and why it confused so many people. She described vocation as a call you do not always want. "The only thing I ever wanted to be was an actress, but I was called by God," she wrote. She directly addressed the question people still ask: how could she give up a promising acting career for a cloistered life? Her answer was simple. She did not see it as leaving the world, but entering it more deeply. The book also shows how physical and demanding monastery life was. She wrote about building furniture, making door latches, and even helping construct a sheep barn. She recalled being sent up a tall ladder to nail siding, terrified but determined, later wearing her tool belt with pride. These details made one thing clear: her choice was not an escape. It was discipline, labor, and commitment, love, friendship, and what she meant by union in love. As her story resurfaced, so did questions about love. Hart repeatedly rejected the idea that she became a nun because she was heartbroken. In her only interview after entering Regina Laudis, published in 1971, she explained that the reason was spiritual, not emotional. She said she believed she had a vocation for a union in love that many people find unreasonable. She explained it in a way that made sense to anyone who has ever loved deeply. When someone asks, "Why did you marry this particular man?" all you can say is, "Because he loved me, and I loved him." Why am I a nun? Because he loved me, and I love him. She also quoted the Song of Bernadette, "To those that believe, no explanation is necessary, and to those who don't believe, no explanation is possible." That was her way of saying her decision could not be argued or proven. It had to be lived. Still, her human relationships mattered deeply. Her former fiancé, Don Robinson, remained part of her life until his death in 2011. He never married and visited her every Christmas and Easter. Though he admitted the pain of losing her, he supported her choice and later said, "Every love doesn't have to wind up at the altar." She also shared a close bond with actor Stephen Boyd, whom she described in her book as her only romance with a co-star. Though it did not last, they stayed in touch even after she entered the Abbey. And there was Elvis Presley. She recalled a quiet moment during filming when he handed her a Bible and asked what it meant to her. They spoke about faith without cameras or attention. Looking back, these relationships all pointed to the same truth. Dolores Hart did not disappear because Hollywood forgot her. She stepped away because she chose a life she believed was real, even when few people could understand it. And that choice leaves us with something to think about. Do you think you could walk away from fame, money, and success if you believed something else was truly your purpose? Was Dolores Hart's choice an act of courage or a sacrifice most people could never make? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.